In this lesson, we will be learning more about edge properties. When we click on the edge of a pattern shape, we are able to see the edge properties at the bottom of the context view. There are three options: shrink, puffy, and force multiplier. Let's talk about shrink first. With shrink, we can set the edge or internal line to shrink by a certain amount. We can configure the shrink properties by measurement or a percentage. For example, what if we wanted to shrink this edge? After ensuring that the edges we want to shrink are selected, we go to the context view and in the Edge Properties section, select Shrink. The configurable shrink properties are displayed. We can enable the percentage setting to set a percentage of shrinkage, or we can enable the ruler setting to set a shrinkage measurement. Let's use percentage. The amount is the percentage of shrinkage we would like to apply. For example, we can shrink this edge by 30%. Depth is how much the piece should shrink internally. We can also apply shrink onto internal lines. For example, we can shrink this internal line to create an effect as if they were elastic on the hem. We click the internal line and go to the context view in the Line Properties section. When we click Shrink, similar configurable properties are displayed, except for depth. Once we've added some shrink, we click Dress to view the simulation results. Another example of using shrink is to create shearing effects on the garment. Here we apply shrink to the internal lines on a waistband to produce the shearing effect. Note that if we wanted to refine the shearing detail, we could lower the grid size. Force multiplier can be used to strengthen the edges of our garments. For example, when we have swimwear where the edges are folded over twice with elastic band. In real life, the elastic band and the allowance folded in can help to reinforce the edges and to keep the shape required for the best fit and look of the garment. In V-Stitcher, we can apply this reinforcement using force multiplier. To apply force multiplier, we first select the edges we would like to reinforce. Again, we go to Context View in the Edge Properties section. This time, we select force multiplier. Amount is where we input the real-life number of folded layers of the fabric. The amount to input depends on how the seam is constructed in real life. For example, if it is a superimposed, lapped, or bonded seam, to name a few. We can study the cross-section of the seams in real life to count the number of layers. For this swimwear, it has a double fold, so looking at the cross-section, we should total up to 3 layers. We will add an additional layer as there is elastic as well. Hence, the amount to input is 4. Depth is where we insert the depth of the fold or elastic band. After applying the force multiplier, we can see the garment's edge being stiffer. Another example of applying force multiplier is on the 2 garments we created previously. Here we could apply force multiplier with the depth of the elastic casing to have more realistic, stiffer look to the hem. Let's also apply force multiplier to the shearing waistband we created previously. Applying the same logic, now we have a more realistic looking shearing. Note that force multiplier can be applied to many more garment types, like edges of neckbands, collars, plackets, and more, to reinforce them. Next is puffy. Puffy lines are only applicable when you create a puffy garment and would like to adjust the edge to have a rounded effect. It is also available for internal lines to help create the quilting lines on the puffy garment. More information on how to utilize the puffy property will be covered in a future video about the puffy workflow. The last option available in edge properties is Finish Effect. This can be applied when you have an edge that is not stitched to another pattern. For example, a collar pattern where only one layer is stitched. This allows you to choose how the edges were constructed, whether it is flat, rounded, or double rounded. In this video, you've learned how to use edge properties to help achieve better simulation results for your 3D garments. For more information, visit support.browseware.com.